The Vice President of the Republic of Ghana, His Excellency Alhaji Dr. Bawumia, representing the President of the Republic of Ghana, the President of the Ghana Academy of Arts and Sciences, past presidents, vice presidents, fellows of the Ghana Academy of Arts and Sciences, Your Excellencies, distinguished guests, students, ladies and gentlemen. On behalf of the President and fellows of the Ghana Academy of Arts and Sciences, Ghana's premier learned institution, I warmly welcome you to this afternoon's event, which is the launching of the 60th anniversary of the establishment of the Academy, to be followed by a lecture in the humanities. It is my privilege to introduce the chairman for this occasion. Professor Henrietta I. Joy Abena Nyaku Mensah Bonsu is a professor of law at the Faculty of Law, University of Ghana, and the immediate past director of the Legon Center for International Affairs and Diplomacy. She attended Wesley Girls High School, Cape Coast, entering the University of Ghana in 1977 and graduating in 1980 with a first-class honors degree in law. She was a co-recipient of the Maccallian Prize for the Best Graduating Student of Walter Hall in 1980. She took her professional studies at the Ghana School of Law and was called to the bar in 1982. She obtained an LLM from Yale Law School, returning to the University of Ghana to teach. In 1991, she won a Fulbright Fellowship to the Yale Law School as a visiting scholar and a Unitwin Fellowship to Zimbabwe. In 1995. She was appointed a lecturer in 1985, senior lecturer in 1993, associate professor in 1997, and full professor in 2002, being the first female full professor of law. She was elected a fellow of the Ghana Academy of Arts and Sciences in June 2003. Professor Mensah Bonsu has had many national and international assignments. Notable among these was the appointment by the Secretary General of the United Nations as the Deputy Special Representative of the Secretary General in Liberia in November 2007. Recently, she was a member of the three-person Commission of Inquiry chaired by Justice Francis Emil Short, investigating the disturbances during the Ayawaso West Wuogon constituency by-election. Professor Mensah Bonsu was elected President of the Academy at the 199th General Meeting of Fellows for a 2-year period from January 2019 to December 2020. Please help me to welcome the chairman for this occasion, Professor Mensah Bonsu.
Thank you, Honorary Secretary. Your Excellency, Vice President of the Republic of Ghana, now Acting President, past Presidents of the Academy, Vice President of the Academy, our distinguished Speaker, who is also a past President and has already been acknowledged, our distinguished Fellows, distinguished members of the public. I see Professor Yanka here, but since he's a fellow and a Minister of State, I don't know which one to acknowledge first. ladies and gentlemen, it is said that great things have small beginnings. So it is with the Ghana Academy of Arts and Sciences, founded in 1959 on the initiative of Ghana's first president, then Prime Minister, Osagyefo Dr. Kwame Nkrumah, with little fanfare. The Academy began as an academy of learning in November 1959 with a stated aim to promote the pursuit, advancement, and dissemination of knowledge in all branches of the sciences and humanities. It is not an accident that it came into being 2 years after Ghana had attained political independence from colonial rule. The need to embark upon an enterprise to decolonize the mind of the former Gold Coasters by mobilizing leading lights of the intelligentsia must have become glaring. As the singer Bob Marley was to state many years later, and I quote, "Emancipate yourself from mental slavery. None but ourselves can free our minds," unquote. Thus, it is not surprising that the first colony in Black Africa to attain political independence was also the first to establish an academy of learning. The 20 foundation members, with the Prime Minister himself in the lead as chairman, were selected on the basis of recommendations by a small working party. The mission of the Ghana Academy of Arts and Sciences then, as now, was to encourage the creation, acquisition, dissemination, and utilization of knowledge for national development through the promotion of learning. On 21st November 1959, the Governor General, Lord Listowel, signed an instrument of incorporation, and on 27th November 1959, Prince Philip, the Duke of Edinburgh, formally inaugurated the Academy at the Great Hall of the University College of Ghana. We are talking old times, so everything is old. Prince Philip became the first president of the Academy, and Dr. Nkrumah its chairman. Since Dr. Nkrumah was also the head of state, meetings of the Academy were held in the Flagstaff House, and later a temporary office near the Ghana Law School was set up to be used purely for administrative work. In 1961, the Academy's name was changed from the Ghana Academy of Learning to the Ghana Academy of Sciences. The Duke of Edinburgh, whose office as president was about to expire, was appointed patron and the first honorary fellow of the Academy, while Dr. Nkrumah was appointed president as well as chairman. The Academy's first honorary secretary was Mr. E.A. Boateng of the University College of Ghana, and the first treasurer was Mr. Justice W.B. Van Leer, then a justice of the Court of Appeal. In 1966, after the overthrow of the government of Dr. Kwame Nkrumah by a military coup d'etat, the Academy underwent a reorganization that saw the addition of arts to its name to underline the fact that the Academy was concerned not only with the sciences, but also with the humanities and the fine arts. Your Excellency, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, distinguished fellows, at this point, I'm going to speak about the foundation members. They have all passed, including our last surviving member, who is as yet to be buried, Professor Nketia. And so may I request that we all be on our feet to observe a minute's silence after the roll call. The original members of the Academy, the 20 foundation members, were: 1, Honorable Dr. Kwame Nkrumah, Prime Minister of Ghana; Mr. E.A. Boateng, Senior Lecturer in Geography, University College of Ghana; Justice W.B. Van Leer, Justice of Appeal; Lady Barbara Jackson, economist and author; Sir Akuko Sir, Chief Justice of Ghana; Dr. J.B. Dankwa, Barrister at Law; R.H. Stoughton, Principal, University College of Ghana; FGD Toto, Senior Lecturer in Chemistry, University College of Technology. K. Chumberima, Head of the Faculty of Agriculture, Kumasi College of Technology. R.W.H. Wright, Professor of Physics, University College of Ghana. Jeffrey Bing, Attorney General. Dr. Silas Dodu, Physician Specialist, Ministry of Health and Social Welfare. W.E. Duncanson, Principal, Kumasi College of Technology. J.A.K. Quarte, Lecturer in Chemistry, University College of Ghana. Lam, Director, West African Cocoa Research Institute, TAFO. Dr. Susan Oforiata, Medical Officer, Ministry of Health and Social Welfare. Dr. A.A. Kwapon, Lecturer in Classics, University College of Ghana. D.A. Chapman, Headmaster, Achimota School. A.C. Aka, formerly Headmaster, Ghana College, Cape Coast. J.H. Kwabena Nketia, Research Fellow, University College of Ghana. May we observe a minute's silence. May their souls and the souls of the faithful departed rest in perfect peace. Amen. Thank you. A few words about the Academy. Organized according to the prescripts of the Ghana Academy of Arts and Sciences Act 1968, NLC Decree 291 as amended by Act 392, the Academy's affairs are conducted by the Council and the General Meeting of Fellows. The Council comprises the principal officers of the Academy, namely the President, 2 Vice Presidents who are respectively the chairpersons of the Science and Arts sections, the Honorary Secretary and the Honorary Treasurer, together with 6 persons elected by the General Meeting of Fellows from among the Fellows of the Academy. The Academy is serviced by a Secretariat headed by the Executive Secretary. In 2016, it moved from its old home in the Institute of Water Resources building right behind us of the CSIR into its own buildings provided under the government of President John Mahama. These imposing structures have certainly augmented the prospects of the Academy and given it renewed vim and vigor in pursuit of its mandate. The Academy continues to grow from strength to strength. Currently, it has 120 fellows made up of 64 sciences and 56 arts fellows. Of this number, 20 fellows are resident outside Ghana, 13 are based in regions outside Greater Accra, and 15 are no longer able to be active on grounds of old age or ill health. Plans are underway to recruit a number of younger but equally distinguished scholars to rejuvenate the Academy. The mandate of the Academy is fulfilled through conferences and lectures throughout the year, as well as the award of prizes for academic excellence. Since its inception, the Academy has been involved in thought leadership and making inputs into policy making through research and evidence-based advice and through its public lectures and publications. The Academy's flagship lectures are the J.B. Dankwa Memorial Lectures and the Kwame Nkrumah Memorial Lecture, held in February and November each year, respectively. The J.B. Dankwa Memorial Lectures. The J.B. Dankwa Memorial Lecture Series was instituted in 1968 in memory of a foundation member of the Academy, Dr. Joseph Boache Dankwa, who died in prison as a political detainee in February 1965. The first lecture was by Mr. Justice W.B. Van Leer on the topic, The Law, Human Rights, and the Judiciary. The most recent one was delivered on Religion and Science in February 2019 by Most Reverend Peter Akwasi Sapon, Emeritus Archbishop of Kumasi. The Kwame Nkrumah Memorial Lecture. The Academy's anniversary program, the oldest of its traditions, started in November 1960 as the first anniversary celebration. Since then, the Academy has celebrated the anniversary in November every year with a series of activities culminating in the anniversary lecture. the Academy has done its own political reconciliation within, and so a glaring injustice was corrected when in 2003 a decision was taken to rename the anniversary lecture after the Academy's founder, Dr. Kwame Nkrumah. The first Kwame Nkrumah Memorial Lecture was delivered by a foundation member of the Academy, Professor Alexander Kwapong, on the topic, the Academy's Foundations and its Role in National Development. And in 2018, by Professor Horace Campbell, the third occupant of the Kwame Nkrumah Chair at the Institute of African Studies, University of Ghana, on the topic, Saving Lake Chad and the Unification of Africa, the Inspiration of Kwame Nkrumah. The Ifremamo Lectures. Ifremamo Memorial Lectures have been delivered since 1999. The first to be delivered was by our foundation fellow and recently departed senior colleague, Professor Emeritus J.H. Kwabenan Ketia, on the topic Synoptic Portrait of Amu. And the last one in 2018 by our past president, Nana Dr. S.K.B. Asante, on the topic The Musings of a Chief in Contemporary Ghana. Nana Dr. S.K.B. Asante, by an interesting twist of fate, is the lecturer for today's annual lecture on the humanities to commemorate the 60th anniversary launch. An equally interesting coincidence is the fact that the next Ifremamo Memorial Lectures will be delivered on 30th May by the rap artist Mr. Kwame Chikata, who goes by the stage name Manifest, grandson of the first lecturer, Professor Emeritus J.H. Kwabenan Ketia, on the topic Reimagining Us, the Role of Popular Music in Self-Actualization. So I hope the young people will come and listen to one of their own. The Academy continues to reimagine national development and to renew itself for the cause. Asante Opoku Rindolph Lectures. The Asante Opoku Rindolph Memorial Lecture Series is a collaboration between the Akrofri Cristala Institute of Theology and the Ghana Academy of Arts and Sciences to honor the memory of three distinguished Ghanaians, Reverends David Asante, Theophilus Herman Opoku, and Carl Christian Rindolph, who worked amongst their people in the 19th century to show the capacity of indigenous Ghanaian languages as a viable means of communication between educated people and for academic purposes. The first one was in 2006, incidentally, by our late departed Professor J.H. Kwabenan Ketia, on the topic Oral Tradition in a New Move, the Shaping of Indigenous Scholarship and Literary Style. And the last one by Professor Dr. Engineer Henry Niajiri Wellington. And the title was Adikamfumo, What Are Heroes For? The annual lectures in the sciences and humanities have been instituted in the Academy with a view to creating a platform where fellows could take turns in addressing topical issues in the humanities and the sciences. The first in the sciences was in 2003 by Dr. Letitia Obeng, past president, whom I see here. Welcome, madam. On water, a crisis in development. And the last in 2018 by GKS Aflakui on the topic Plants and Human Development. In the arts, the first one was by now our Honorable Professor Kwesi Yanka on language, the mass media, and democracy in Ghana. And the last one in 2018 by Professor Steve Toner on migration, farmer-herder conflicts and insecurity in Ghana, unraveling the recent violent incidents in the Afram Plains. I mentioned the first and the last to show that we are still a vibrant group addressing matters that are dear to the heart of our nation at any point in time. In addition to these annual lectures, there are others as well. Principal among these are the inaugural lectures, which all newly elected fellows have to deliver within 3 years of their induction into fellowship. These lectures are on a topic of the lecturer's choice on contemporary issues of national or international significance. Other lectures take place in the course of the year as collaboration with other academies may require, or as and when a need arises for the academy to be heard on any matter of national importance. Another of the academy's traditional activities with which it endeavors to fulfill its mandate is the prizes and awards part of its mandate, the gold, silver, and bronze categories, which are awarded to Ghanaians based on their publication or invention in recognition of contribution to knowledge. The silver award, the most promising, is given for the most promising unpublished work in the arts and sciences and is usually awarded for outstanding master's or doctoral dissertations accepted by any of the universities in Ghana. And the bronze award is for undergraduate essay contests in the humanities and sciences. In brief, the Academy has endured to become a great institution, quietly making firm intellectual contribution to national life and national development. And I quote from Rudyard Kipling in his famous poem, School Songs, "Wherefore praise we famous men, from whose base we borrow, they that put aside today all the joys of their today, and with toil of their today bought for us tomorrow. Bless and praise we famous men, men of little showing, for their work continueth, and their work continueth, broad and deep continueth, great beyond their knowing." Unquote. I thank you very much for your attention. Now, at this point, it's my privilege to call upon His Excellency, the Vice President, to do the formal launch.
Thank you very much, Honorable Minister of State for Tertiary Education, President of the Ghana Academy of Arts and Sciences, Professor Henrietta Mensah-Bonsu, past presidents, our guest speaker, Nana Professor SKB Asante, fellows, heads of agencies, students, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, I wish on behalf of the President, Nana Addo Akufo-Addo, to express our profound gratitude to the Council and Fellows of the Ghana Academy of Arts and Sciences for the singular honor of your invitation to launch the 60th anniversary of the Academy. 60 years in the life of any entity is remarkable and worthy of recognition and celebrations. So I say on behalf of the President, Ayiko, and congratulations. It is a bit intimidating to be here because you are really talking to the professors of professors, the brain trust of Ghana, all assembled in one venue. And I'm really, really happy to be here. Big respect, as we say colloquially, to all of you. When I think about all of you, I think about patriotism, scholarship, integrity, all that a nation needs to really develop. So it's indeed a pleasure to join you in celebrating the Academy. I'm informed, as the President has said, the foundation was in 1959, and the following were set as the aims and objectives: to promote the study and extension and dissemination of knowledge of all the sciences and learning, to establish and maintain proper standards of endeavor in all fields of science and learning in Ghana, to recognize outstanding contributions to the advancement of sciences and learning in Ghana, to contribute actively to the advancement of Ghana and Africa, in particular, and in the world in general, by examining and addressing issues of development, and to do anything that is conducive or incidental to the attainment of all or any of the foregoing projects. It could be said from the above that the Academy is basically concerned with promoting knowledge in all its forms. I may not be far from right to say, therefore, that education is a critical part of the activities that engage your attention. Would urge you to continue to offer government critical advice towards achieving the nation's educational and other visions. In your service to the scientific community, especially, government will be pleased if you continue to focus on the following: recognize scientific achievements and encourage the pursuit of scientific excellence by electing merit-based scientists to your membership and honoring their achievements through awards; to foster a new generation of talented scientists by setting up the scheme to spot and nurture young scientific talents; facilitate linkages with scientific communities abroad through initiating exchange programs and promote dissemination and exchange of scientific knowledge and publications, and through hosting of conferences and lectures as you do. Since we came into office, our preoccupation has been to put together, through the institution of the free senior high school program, the necessary foundations for ensuring that in the not too distant future, ours becomes a highly educated population. In fact, I believe through this policy, the Ghana of 15 years from now will be very different, as we have more and more of an educated population. We are gratified that since your inception, some 60 years ago, you have not ceased to offer your platform for discussing many and varied issues of national concern, from artificial intelligence to the latest approaches in dealing with zoonotics. A quick glance at the program scheduled for the year-long celebration projects, such as a broad-based and gratifying mix of the issues demanding government's attention at the moment. In a world where knowledge, technology, and innovations are becoming the drivers of change, you ought to be applauded at the currency of the issues you are dwelling on. Technology is expanding the frontiers of growth, because growth is no longer subject to discovery of natural resources. Our path of economic growth and diversification through greater value addition is a step to capitalize on what science and technology can help us to do. We must do old things in new ways. We must ask old questions in new ways. Technological innovations can generate new answers. Our national life today is infused with current technology, spanning the national identification system, digital address system, the paperless port systems, e-banking systems, mobile money platforms, mobile money interoperability, and so on. The government of Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo has set a digitization agenda to improve the efficiency of many government agencies, how to access public services, how to deliver them, how to pay for them where there is a charge, and ultimately help eliminate the temptation to corrupt simple processes and procedures that are meant to improve the quality of life of the citizenry. Technology has changed the traditional production and consumption dynamics. Its use in agriculture, in some countries, enables farmers to make advised projections for the yield of their crop and the health of the soil.
Symphony Orchestra to give a little performance. Thank you very much, National Orchestra. I'm certain that many people are familiar with the words of that song, and we know that if Ghana is to prosper, it will be because we, Ghanaians, are willing to work for its prosperity. It is now my pleasure to introduce the anniversary lecturer for today, Nana Dr. SKB Asante is our lecturer. Nana's profile is enough to light a bulb all on its own. But that is as it should be. And it is to tell the younger people that all is possible if you apply yourself. Nana's profile illustrates the new word that has been coined for higher education, which is glonalocal. And glonalocal means global, national, local. Nana is a paramount chief of Asokore traditional area. Nana is a national personality. He's a member of the National House of Chiefs. He's a past president of this academy. He was a Solicitor General of Ghana and Deputy Attorney General from 69 to 77. If anybody can lay claim to being the father of the 1992 Constitution, it should be Nana, who was chairman of the committee of experts that formulated the proposals for the 1992 Constitution. And he has an international profile that will make you gasp. Permit me to say that I was once at a meeting on alternative dispute resolution, specifically arbitration. And as they projected the names of the members of the Court of International Arbitration, imagine my pleasure when the only Ghanaian, indeed the only African in the list, was our own Nana. I swelled with pride, and you can imagine my size and swelling with pride. And so, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, I know you will make up your minds yourselves after you have heard Nana, and so it is not for me to take all your time to tell you about the distinguished gentleman. He has global stature, he has national stature, he has local stature, and you name it, and he has it. Ladies and gentlemen, our speaker on the topic, 60 years of scholarly excellence, challenges, achievements, and prospects from the humanities perspective. I give you Nana Dr. SKB Asante.
Your Excellency, need some water. Your Excellency, Dr. Mahamudu Bawumia, Vice President of the Republic, the President of the Academy, past presidents, vice presidents, distinguished fellows of the Academy, distinguished members of the National Orchestra, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, our esteemed students. It is a pleasure to be with you this afternoon, and I would like to thank Professor Mensah Bonsu for her kind words about me. However, I prefer the introduction that he gave me when I met her at Yale Law School some years ago. She introduced me as the teacher of her teachers. And I would like to be known as the teacher of the teachers of the distinguished Professor Henrietta Mensah-Bonsu. When I was invited to deliver this lecture, I naturally hesitated. This is not an easy undertaking for an octogenarian. But I was told that the reason for selecting me was that I had been around the academy for a long time. I thought longevity was a privilege which did not warrant the imposition of hard labor. Nevertheless, I accepted it, and therefore, my plea to you is that if you detect any defects in my presentation, then blame my colleagues and not myself. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, this lecture calls for a review of the Academy's achievements in scholarly excellence in the area of the humanities and a prognosis of its challenges and prospects. Before undertaking that task, it would be appropriate to consider, somewhat briefly, some preliminary matters, such as the position of the humanities in the objects and activities of the Academy, and the scope of the term humanities for the purposes of the Academy. The Ghana Academy of Arts and Sciences, as you've been told, was established in 1959 on the initiative of Dr. Kwame Nkrumah and has always emphasized the role of the humanities in national development. The critical importance of the humanities has persisted, notwithstanding the Academy's previous designation as an Academy of Learning or Academy of Sciences. The formal remit of the Academy has always included the larger concept of learning beyond the narrow confines of science. It is in fact noteworthy that a majority of 12 out of the Foundation Fellows were selected from scholars of the humanities. Over the years, the humanities have also featured prominently in the public lectures sponsored by the Academy in such flagship programs as the J.B. Danko Memorial Lectures and the Ephraim Memorial Lectures and the Asante Opoku Randolph Memorial Lectures. Now, in response to the contention that the humanities should be de-emphasized in the face of the country's present need for science and technology, Professor Alexander Kwapon said in his lecture on the role of the humanities in national development in 1967, I quote, "In these developing countries, the language, the history, the philosophy and thoughts of mankind must be made available to them, no less than the scientific and technological discoveries and inventions." He continued, "The humanities must indeed be true to their real meaning. They must be learning or disciplines concerned with human culture, and they must contribute to literature and comparative literature, classical studies, history, linguistics, languages, philosophy, and even programs for interpreters and translators. Many will balk at the inclusion of the last category. But Professor Kwapon continues, precise definition of the range and scope of the humanities is not easy to arrive at, but scholars of the humanities are agreed as to their general scope and content. Briefly put, the humanities may be defined as being concerned with the expression, the beliefs, religion, values, philosophy, culture, and the past and present of a people, as well as their views of the future. And as some one has put it, there are insights offered by the humanities. We are allowed clearer glimpses than anywhere else in the mystery of being human. And now to another fellow of the Academy, Professor J.O. de Graaf Hansen. Again, on the 25th anniversary of the Academy, offered the following insights. What are the humanities? What subjects or better still disciplines constitute the humanities? What are their essential aspects? And why have they been regarded as, in every civilized society, as indispensable in the general education of man? In the unfortunate but convenient dichotomy of knowledge or learning into arts and sciences, and here I'm reminded that our academy at birth was an academy of learning, but subsequently rechristened as one of arts and sciences. In this duality, the humanities fall within the first division. They embrace those disciplines, so-called, because of the rigorous, exacting nature of the studies, whose special concern is the study of man's experience and creative achievements in thought and feeling, which have been given enduring expression in language and literature, philosophy and religion, law and history, mathematics, the fine arts, and the performing arts, experiences and achievements which have been found to have a meaning and significance for man's life. And I'm sure, ladies and gentlemen, that you'll be relieved to hear, after this learned exposition, that by our eminent scholars, that the Academy has a very simple and pragmatic definition of the humanities for the purposes of its objects and activities. Namely, according to the Academy, the term humanities or arts includes all subjects and disciplines other than the natural sciences and the scientific professions. In short, the term includes the liberal arts and the social sciences. These definitional exercises, however, are not entirely irrelevant to this lecture. The Western source of the concept of humanities raises a fundamental question as to the meaning and scope of scholarly excellence in the humanities in the African context. African scholars such as Ali Mazuri, Toyin Falola, and Kwesi Yankah have diagnosed and deplored the essentially Eurocentric character of the African Academy. In the words of Kwesi Yankah, African academies, quote, continue to rely on Western academic models for self-assessment in local academia, a natural sequel to the wholesale adoption of Western paradigms in our academies, quotations close. Now, ladies and gentlemen, if Kwesi Yankah's pronouncement is valid, then we are confronted with a troublesome question as to the criteria for assessing the Academy's achievements in scholarly excellence in the humanities. Will the criterion be the extent to which we have faithfully adopted Western paradigms in our scholarly endeavors? I shall revert to this issue later. At this stage, it is enough to point out that the above-mentioned scholars and others, such as Alexander Kwapon and L.H. Ofosuapia, both fellows of the Academy, emphatically reject the notion that scholarly excellence in African academies should be exclusively dictated and dominated by Western paradigms. They maintain that Africa should make a distinctive and authentic contribution to human knowledge. Now, here I would like to refer briefly to our objects. As a matter of fact, all the objects have already been read. And so I'll just mention them. To promote the study, I would say that the Academy's modalities for achieving scholarly excellence are informed by the Academy's statutory objects, which are 1, to promote the study, extension, and dissemination of knowledge in the arts and the sciences; 2, to establish and maintain proper standards of endeavor in all fields of the arts and sciences; and 3, to recognize outstanding contribution to the arts and sciences. Now, the above objectives have been expanded to include the following: to contribute actively to the development of Ghana and Africa generally by examining and addressing crucial issues of development; and 5, to do such other things as are conducive or incidental to the attainment of all or any of the foregoing objects. I should add that development is a holistic concept encompassing science, technology, and the humanities. As explained in the Brand Report issued several decades ago, statistical measurements of growth exclude the crucial elements of social welfare, of individual rights, of values not measurable by money. I quote, "Development is more than the passage from poor to rich, from a traditional rural economy to a sophisticated urban one. It carries with it not only the idea of economic betterment, but also of greater human dignity, security, justice, and equity." So those are objectives. Now, in the past, the Academy has promoted and upheld scholarly excellence through the following modalities. 1, by recognition through the election of eminent scholars into the Academy. The Academy only elects persons of proven scholarly excellence. Therefore, membership is a prize or reward for scholarly excellence. And a review of the membership discloses scholars who have excelled in various areas of the arts. The second way in which we promote excellence is by the award of prizes to promising scholars. 3, by undertaking collective scholarly enterprises. 4, by inspiring first-rate scholarly works by individual fellows. And 5, by organizing symposia, seminars, and public fora for the presentation of scholarly papers on various aspects of the humanities by fellows and sometimes by other scholars. Now, let's turn to the achievements. And I want to address, first of all, the collective initiatives of the Academy. The first is the Dictionary of African Biography. One of the most ambitious projects supported by the Academy was a 20-volume work known as the Dictionary of African Biography, inspired by W.E.B. Du Bois' concept of Encyclopedia Africana. The first volume, which was published in 1977 under the direction of Professor Ehrlich of Ethiopia, fellow of the Academy, comprised a total of 138 Ethiopian and Ghanaian biographies by more than 70 contributors and constituted a historic landmark in the cultural understanding between Africa and America. An excerpt from the cover of the book reads, "Spanning the centuries, the dictionary assembles the biographies of African emperors and empresses, kings, queens, statesmen, religious leaders, soldiers, even adventurers, politicians, writers, lawyers, merchants, and others who down the centuries have influenced the course of events, many of them overlooked by Western literature, but all of special significance." Quotations closed. Each national series of biographies was preceded by a special historical introduction written by a leading national scholar. The project, unfortunately, did not progress beyond the first volume, and we will come back to that later. The other collective initiative is that the Academy has collaborated with the International Academic Union in producing what is known as Fontes Historiae Africanae, a journal devoted to translating historical documents into African languages. I researched into some of the translations, and I'll pick one or two. Thank you. We have something called the Chronicles from Gonja, a tradition of West Africa historiography, edited and translated and commented upon by Ivor Wicks and Nehemiah Levzian, with editorial assistance of Bruce Haight. Then there is one called Mombasa Rising Against the Portuguese, 1631. And then there's a description of an historical account of the Gold Kingdom of Guinea by Peter Mares, edited and translated from the Dutch by Albert van Danzig. I think he was a fellow of this academy, and Adam Jones. And so that is for Fontes Historia Africanae. There are other projects. The Academy provided support for the preparation of a tree dictionary by Professor Ofosu-Appiah and a Ghana dictionary by Reverend E.A. Engman. Professor Ofosu-Appiah had himself earlier attained the distinction of translating Homer's Odyssey into Twi. The Academy, during the early stages, promoted the retrieval of the country's oral history and emphasized its importance. And then within the past 30 years, the Academy has also made valiant attempts to identify and retrieve traditional forms of knowledge which have been ignored in Western scholarship in the humanities. In the first 30 years of its existence, the Academy promoted retrieval of the country's oral history and emphasized its importance. Now, within my own period as president, the Academy organized a symposium on tradition and modernity at the instance of Professor Kwabena Nketia, which inter alia addressed traditional knowledge and relevance. The Honorable Kusuyanka was then secretary of the Academy. And the Academy has also undertaken at some time a project for the publication of books of artistic value. Now I turn to memorial lectures. The Academy's program of memorial lectures may be described as a cross between collective and individual efforts which promotes scholarly excellence by providing a mechanism for the presentation and publication of scholarly papers by fellows and occasionally by other scholars. The significance of this mechanism will be appreciated in the light of the well-known constraints on publication in international journals. Now, we've all heard about the Dankwa Memorial Lectures and the fact that the first one was delivered by Mr. Justice Van Leer, a Justice of Appeal who subsequently served as Ghana High Commissioner to Canada. The topic of that lecture has already been given by our President. Now, the lectures were originally restricted to subjects of scholarly interest to J.B. Dankwa, but they were subsequently extended to the sciences. So it is not surprising that as many as 36 out of the 51 J.B. Danko Memorial Lectures were delivered by scholars of the humanities. And while it would be invidious to assert the scholarly output of these lectures, we can say that they have traversed a very wide area. From the original lecture on the law, human rights, and the judiciary, lectures have traversed such diverse areas as political science, public administration in Ghana, the evolution of the Constitution, law and development, history, notable biographies, religion, geography, culture, children's literature, linguistics, philosophy, education, sociology, economic development, Pan-Africanism and regionalism, women in history, and governance. Most of these lectures, fortunately, have been published and have made a significant contribution to scholarship in the humanities. Now, while it would be invidious to assert the scholarly quality of these lectures, one can safely assert that the Academy has, through the series, promoted the ventilation of African perspectives on aspects of the humanities, and that some of the lectures have faithfully adhered to the scholarly maxim of speaking truth to power. Consider, for example, Professor Edibuahin's famous lecture, The Ghanaian Sphinx, a reflection on contemporary history of Ghana, which openly challenged the legitimacy and efficacy of military rule and provoked a national debate on Ghana's political and constitutional development. Now I turn to Ephraim Emu Memorial Lectures. These lectures were established on the initiative of Professor Kwabena Nketia, a legendary ethnomusicologist and composer. In 1999, in honor of Dr. Ephraim Emu, also a renowned musicologist and philosopher and a cultural activist, Ephraim Emu, it will be recalled, was expelled from Akropong Teacher Training College for committing 2 grave offenses against the Presbyterian institution. One was desecrating the pulpit by wearing an African attire in the course of delivering a sermon. The other was introducing African drums and music to the Akropong students and teaching them to sing and dance to the music, all characterized as a reversion to heathenism. And the philosophy behind this expulsion was based on the principle of tabula rasa, the notion that every vestige of African culture must be expunged or erased as a prerequisite to the reception of Christianity. Ephraim Emu emphatically rejected this view. As Professor Lawrence Boadi put it in his Ephraim Emu Memorial Lecture, one inescapable fact about Dr. Emu was his faith in the best that was in African traditions. He reflected this not only in his discourse on religion and the arts and learning in general, but also in practical living as well. Emu firmly believed in combining the best of African values and tradition with the best in imported values and traditions. Now, it is a measure of the success of the Ephraim Emu Memorial Lecture Series that it has, over the years, generated an in-depth interrogation into many aspects of African culture, religion, literature, and philosophy. The inaugural lecture, we have been told, was delivered by Professor J.H. Nketia on the topic, Music, Culture, and National Development, the Legacy of Ephraim Emu. I had the honor of chairing that event in my capacity as Vice President of the Academy. This has been followed by such illuminating presentations as Ephraim Emu, The Portrait of Cultured Patriotism by Dr. Letitia Obeng, Music in Worship, Aid or Hindrance by Reverend Professor Chrissy Dixon, Music and Moral Philosophy, Ephraim Emu Compositions Revisited by Professor R.F. Amonu, The Poetry of Ephraim Emu by L.A. Boadi, Theological Landmarks in the Life and Thought of Ephraim Emu by Reverend Dr. Philip Lai, Bridging the Gap Between Tradition and Modernity, Ephraim Emu as a Music Educator by Dr. A.A. Agodo, In Search of a Lifelong Learning Education Program for Ghana by Professor James Flofu, Discoverers in the Insights in Total Linguistic Facilitated Reading of Mother Tongue, Introducing the Ephraim Emu Principle by Professor Konita Hulu, The Dr. Ephraim Emu Phenomenon, Import and Relevance for This Generation by Professor Blade, Medicine, Music, and the Mind, Implications of Ephraim Emu's Music for Ghanaians by Professor S.K. Usu, Colonial Legacy and the Challenge of Self-Naming by Professor Enyi Doho, Kofi Enyi Doho, Missionary Hymnology, or Ministry Hymnology, Ephraim Emu's Christianity as a Non-Western Endeavor by Very Reverend Professor Kwabena Asamoah Jedu, and The Music of a Chief in Contemporary Ghana by yours truly. Unfortunately, this impressive body of scholarship has not been fully published. Efforts are now being made to rectify this anomaly. Now, I would like to turn to the works of individual fellows in the humanities, that is. The Academy's scholarly excellence is reflected in the scholarly endeavors of individual fellows before and after their election as members of the Academy. Election denotes the Academy's recognition of the excellence of the fellows' scholarship. At the same time, election should inspire and sustain excellence in further scholarly endeavors. The two prominent foundation fellows, that is J.B. Dankwa and Kwame Nkrumah, represent two sides of this coin. Dankwa was by the time of his admission already established as a scholar and writer, not only in law, but also in philosophy, poetry, literature, and drama. Nkrumah's prolific writings in political science and history peaked after his admission into the Academy. In their own ways, their scholarship challenged Western paradigms. And now I refer to Edubuahin. Edubuahin's works in history provided refreshing and penetrating interpretations of African history. In particular, he challenged the prevailing Western view that Africa had no history before the advent of the Europeans on the African continent. He widened the horizons, he widened the sources of history by exploring Arab and traditional sources. As intimated above, his famous lecture, The Ghanaian Sphinx, is generally recognized as having generated a more liberal political atmosphere conducive to the introduction of a democratic constitutional order. Professor Kwame Gyekye's writings on philosophy have challenged Eurocentric approaches to philosophy by portraying African philosophical perspectives. Examples of his works are Man as a Moral Subject, The Perspectives of African Philosophical Anthropology, the unexamined life, philosophy, and the African experience, aspects of African communicative thought, African cultural values, traditional political ideas and values, essays on African political, philosophical thought. Kofi Anyidahu, a renowned poet and authority on culture, and Helen Law, a philosopher, have produced a monumental work devoted to, quote, reclaiming the human sciences and the humanities through African perspectives. The 2 volumes of this work were based on the papers presented at an international symposium held at Legon over 3 days in September 2003 by Cordesria, an African Humanities Institute program on the broad themes, canonical works and continuing innovation in African arts and the humanities. The symposium attracted an array of multidisciplinary scholars from all over the world who brought refreshing African perspectives on every aspect of the humanities in Africa. The sub-themes addressed at this symposium included examining knowledge, production as a social institution, explaining actions and beliefs, reappraising development, measuring the human condition, recalling history, Africa as a subject of academic discourse, debating democracy, community, and the law, revisiting artistic expression, and regaining the voice of authority. The compilation may be described as a more water. Yeah. Thank you very much. The compilation may be described as the African response to the Eurocentric bias in the humanities. It is gratifying to note that the contributing scholars included as many as 17 fellows of the Academy, namely Kofi Anyidahu, Helen Na, Akala Pasoya, Kwesi Yanka, Max Simen, Jacob Sonsore, Ivan Adaimen Sam, Akosia Adumako Ampofo, Akosia Pebi, Kwame Nkrumah, Emmanuel Champon, Kwesi Redu, NISKB Asante, Henrietta Mensah Bonsu, J.H. Kwablanketia, Kofi Agau, and Mary Esther Krop Dakubu. Now, linguistics. In the 2009 proceedings of the Academy entitled 50 Years of Promoting Excellence in Knowledge, Emeritus Professor Mary Esther Krop Dakubu provided us with the following insightful assessment of the developments in the field of linguistics in Ghana. I quote now, "The linguistics of Ghanaian languages is another field that has changed out of all recognition in the past 15 years. There has been a huge contribution to knowledge, both within the country and by Ghanaians working abroad. Important methodological advances and contributions to linguistic typology have been made, notably in the theory and analysis of tone systems, the definition of a distinctive pattern of vowel harmony that is typical of Akan, among other languages, and in classification of the languages of the area." Quotations close. As some judges would say, I have little to add to this expert evaluation, except to mention the names of Professor Lawrence Buadi, Krop Dakubu, and Kwesi Yanka, all fellows of the Academy, as leading scholars in this transformation. And now I move to law. law is barely mentioned when we discuss the humanities. Fortunately, the Academy's definition of arts or humanities includes law. Despite the law's questionable credentials as part of the humanities, lawyers have played a significant role in the history of the Academy. It will be recalled that as many as 4 of the 20 foundation fellows were lawyers, namely Sir Ako Kosa, Sir Justice Van Leer, Dr. J.B. Dankwa, and Jeffrey Bing QC. Over the years, a total of 11 justices of the Superior Courts of the country, including three Chief Justices, have been elected into the Academy. The Chief Justices were Sir Ako Kosa, Fred Apolu, and George Akwa. The remaining justices were N.A. Olenu, Van Leer, Kwamina Bensi Encho, Osin Emisa, Samuel Kavida Adam Brobe, Kluje, Modibo Okran, and VCRAC Crab. The legal profession, I should point out, accounts for 4 of the presidents of this academy, namely Justice N.A. Olenu, the longest-serving president of the academy, yours truly, Uncle Akwa Sawyer, and Henrietta Mensah Bonsu. In 1959, the year in which the Academy, as well as the Department of Law at Legon and the Law School at Makola was founded, there was hardly a textbook in law in Ghana. This changed with the publication of Olenu's works on land law and the law of succession, followed by publications of Bensiencho and SKB Asante and Kluje in the area of land law, E.D. Kum on civil procedure, Bimpombuta on constitutional law and the law of interpretation, Osin Emisa on administration of justice, Brobe on the law of evidence and the law of chieftaincy, Datiba on constitutional law and the Supreme Court, Rita Mensah Bonsu on criminal law and family law, Abel Fiajo on public law and alternative dispute resolution, Tachua Menu on gender issues, and VCRAC Crab on legislative drafting. 7 fellows of the Academy have contributed in various ways to the making and review of the constitutions of Ghana since the colonial era. These are Sir Ako Kosa, J.B. Dankwa, Olenu, Crab, and SKB Asante, Sir Bimpombuta, and Abed Fiajo. Now, it's a matter of historical interest that the process of electing judges as fellows of the Academy led to the first significant departure from the Academy's traditional procedures of assessing peer-reviewed publications of candidates in international journals. Published judgments were accepted as publications for purposes of assessment. And now, I round out the individual session by referring appropriately to Professor Kwabena Nketia. Professor Kwabena Nketia, in my respectful opinion, ladies and gentlemen, personifies the Academy's 60-year endeavors towards scholarly excellence in the creative arts and the humanities generally. The legendary ethnomusicologist, poet, and composer deserves the highest commendation for converting dondology, I will explain this later on to the younger ones, dondology into a respectable academic discipline, for articulating and projecting African ethnomusicology throughout the academies of the world, for his productive interface between African music and Western art forms, for his own artistic creations, and for his exemplary role as a persistent and powerful exponent of reinstating African tradition in contemporary context. He has a rare distinction, in my view, of having learned his craft from traditional sources, his grandmother, he says, and then perfecting it to international acclaim. His works have been translated into several international languages, and he has served as a visiting scholar to many centers of learning throughout the world. Here in Ghana, he played a prominent role in the building of institutions. He was one of the foundation fellows of the Academy, a former director of the Institute of African Studies, director of the International Center of Music and Dance, president of the Ghana Academy of Arts and Sciences, and finally, chancellor of the Afro-Christological Institute of Theology, Mission, and Culture at Akropong. He played a critical role in the evolution of this academy. In addition to enhancing the scholarly stature of the academy through his internationally acclaimed works, he initiated and sustained two highly successful series of memorial lectures, namely the Efremamu Memorial Lectures and the Asante Opoku Rindolph Memorial Lectures. And as indicated above, he delivered the inaugural Efremamu Memorial Lecture. He also delivered the first two Asante Opoku Rindolph Memorial Lectures, which were established in collaboration with the Afro-Christological Institute. Subjects were oral tradition in a new mode, the shaping of indigenous scholarship and literal style, and secondly, referential modes of meaning as strategies in oral communications. Finally, he delivered the second Kwame Nkrumah Memorial Lecture on Kwame Nkrumah and the Arts. Professor Nketiah's contribution was not limited to academia. The emeritus professor was responsible for the introduction of traditional elements such as Fonton from Kete and Tumpang and Imensong into state celebrations of Ghana's independence in March 1957, as well as that of the attainment of Republican status in 1960. Prior to this, state functions took the form of military tattoos. Also in 1960, his celebrated orchestral piece, Republican Suite for flute and piano, was performed at a concert requested by Osagyefo Dr. Kwame Nkrumah as part of the program of activities for the first Republic Day celebration. Indeed, I will submit that the celebration of the 60th anniversary of the Academy's scholarly endeavors is synonymous with the celebration of Kwabena Nketiah's scholarly contribution to this and other academies of the world. Kwabena Nketiah deserves the accolade of one of the founding fathers of Ghana, because while the politicians capture the headlines by flamboyant denunciations of colonial rule, Kwabena Nketiah unobtrusively labored towards cultural liberation and the construction of the foundation of the African personality. I have been privileged within the past 20 years to be associated with Professor Nketiah as his Vice President of the Academy, his host in one of his creative performances, and as chairperson of several events honoring him, including the launch of his last book, Reinstating Traditional Music in Contemporary Context, just 3 years ago, when he was 94. I would therefore like to dedicate this lecture to his memory, and I call upon you to show your appreciation. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. The Academy organizes other lectures such as Kwame Nkrumah Memorial Lectures, the inaugural lectures and newly elected fellows, and also symposia during the anniversary celebrations. However, the memorial lectures already discussed, in my opinion, provide sufficient material to assess the scholarly excellence of the Academy's endeavors. And so I now turn to the challenges and prospects. Ladies and gentlemen, scholarly excellence is reflected in publications, and publication of the scholarly output of the Academy raises both prosaic practical issues and substantive philosophical issues. Institutional publication, that is, publication initiated and executed by the Academy as an institution, has been, in my respectful submission, impeded by lack of funds, as prosaic as that. It should be recalled that the publication of the Dictionary of African Biography did not survive the first volume. The publication of individual lectures has also been bedeviled by the same constraint, leading to protracted delays in publishing the papers delivered. Consider, for example, the delayed publication of the highly insightful Ephraim Amu Memorial Lectures, which I've already adverted to. Government has provided the Academy with a multi-million city complex of premises, and in my opinion, it would not be realistic to look to the public coffers as the only source of funds for purposes of the Academy's publications. I submit that the Academy should explore imaginative ways of sourcing funds for projects undertaken by the Academy. After all, dexterity in raising extra-budgetary funds is now an acknowledged qualification for academic administration, and the Academy, which has no shortage of university administrators, should not be deficient in this respect. The constraints on the scholarly output of the Academy, unfortunately, go beyond the inadequacy of financial resources. And here, I realize that I'm treading on controversial grounds. Ironically, in my submission, this Academy also suffers from a lack of adequate manpower. The Academy does not have a core of professionals equipped to conduct research under the supervision of fellows. The current membership of the Academy has a preponderance of elderly retirees who cannot undertake meaningful research by themselves without the assistance of younger scholars. Unfortunately, the rigorous procedures and criteria for electing fellows have resulted in the admission of venerable scholars, some of them well beyond their most dynamic and productive years. It is noteworthy that some of the fellows, foundation fellows, such as Kwapong, Kwabena Nketia, and others, were only in their 30s when they were admitted into fellowship. Other academies are able to undertake evidence-based advisory assignment with the support of a core of professionals. Not so with the Academy. And I realize that the following measures have been suggested by some of our colleagues, Professor Reginald Amono and Professor Henrietta Mensah-Bonsu, to address this constraint. One is the establishment of a junior academy whose members will be mentored by the elderly fellows of the Academy into undertaking productive research that would sustain scholarship. The other is the admission of younger fellows into the senior academy who would be energetic and dynamic enough to prosecute the scholarly enterprise. The first proposal has been around for some time and perhaps needs further exploration to address all issues relating to its implementation. The second proposal, in my respective view, can only be viable if the Academy modifies its criteria for the election of fellows, which usually point to elderly professors who have a long list of peer-reviewed publications in reference international journals, the prescribed route for the progression in Western academies. It has to be pointed out that most of the foundation fellows could not have satisfied these criteria for election, which are currently in force. The founding fathers of the Academy clearly diagnosed the potential scholarship of the early fellows without demanding empirical proof, yet their confidence and judgment were not misplaced. Scholars such as Boachin, Kwapon, and Nketia ultimately proved their scholarship. I would therefore propose that associate professors of demonstrable potential, determined by some high-quality publications and other evidence of high intellect, should be seriously considered for election. That would bring in young and dynamic scholars who can undertake meaningful research, even without the support of a government grant. Now, my final topic is the issue of the concept of scholarly excellence. As pointed out earlier, some scholars have raised fundamental issues about the essentially Eurocentric nature of scholarly endeavors in Africa. Ali Mazuri traces this phenomenon to the era when African universities were comparable to subsidiaries of Western institutions. And I quote him, African universities were often subsidiaries of Northern academic systems. Of course, at one time, we were literally subsidiaries of Western universities. We were fundamentally not very different from the commercial, international, multinational corporation. Only the commodities we produced were degrees, which were often then used for certain different purposes. So the question arises as to whether we have ceased to be subsidiaries of multinational corporations, or whether we are engaged in a fundamental change at the university level. For the time being, says Mazuri, it does not look as if we have made enough progress in reducing the extensions of metropolitan institutions. We are excessively reliant on external paradigms worked out by external scholars. We are dominated by foreign journals and foreign books, especially outside the realm of creative literature and history. He goes on, take virtually any discipline at the university level in Africa, south of the Sahara, and have those specialists discussing their work professionally. The result to a foreign language is inescapable. The academics switch to an alien language even if they come from the same country, even if they come from the same linguistic group ethnically. Once they switch to the professional level of discourse, the pull of the alien language is irresistible. So he says our entire frame of reference switches to a European mentality of discourse. Until now, there has been no effort to get out of this dependency. Indeed, in the case of African universities, there is such an easy acceptance of the predicament that is not even questioned. Now, he said this in 1984, and the question is whether this is true today. So we go to Kwesi Yankah. Similarly, in his paper on globalization and the African scholar, which was delivered in 2012, Kwesi Yankah identified the following, quote, disturbing trends within the politics of the academy. Still quoting, the perception of international academic discourse and publishing as a Euro-Western invention, meriting the wholesale deployment of all its cultural appendages. The assumption of local intellectual paradigms under received Western hegemonies and academic tyranny, and the virtual usurpation of the center of academic authority, and subsequently the marginalization of local intellectuals and the academic agenda. He further points out that Western-dominated world subtly discriminates against traditional systems of knowledge production. Indeed, in my view, that world unabashedly denigrates traditional knowledge. Now, I now continue. An inescapable consequence of this Eurocentric phenomenon is that scholarship or scholarly excellence is determined by external criteria. As Yanka graphically put it, where promotion is based on the candidate's international standing in research and publications, it is foregone that the scholar will be evaluated by the extent to which he approximates Euro-American intellectual paradigms. So, in the light of the above, it is my admission, now I'm speaking as Asante, it is my submission that the most formidable challenge in addressing scholarly excellence in our academy is liberating ourselves from this facile and unquestioning dependency on Western paradigms in determining the content of scholarly excellence. This is an issue which has engaged the attention of some scholars. Professor Capon recognized the good works being done by various institutes of African studies, and then went on to say, no one can deny that there is a need for a major concerted effort by African scholars and thinkers to undertake a comprehensive and genuine assessment, appreciation, and diffusion of the cultural heritage preserved, for instance, in the Proverbs. I have been described in very flattering terms by Professor Mensah Bonsu. Degrees and publications and recognition international and all that. So I become a manhene of Asante Asokore, and I'm humbled by the profusion of traditional knowledge that my elders can command. I'm still learning. So Toyin Falola makes the same point. He calls for a redefinition of the humanities, putting Africa at the core. And I quote him, let the individual scholars pursue their research in the framework of competitive diversity. The only constant is the centrality of Africa. Currently, the intellectual connection between Africa and the West are one-sided. We dwell on what we receive, but not what we give. We borrow ideas we use to make sense of our data, but do not make enough use of our data to create an alternative body of knowledge that others can also take from us to interpret their own realities. I say, I fully endorse the perceptive advice of Alas Capon and Falola. I submit that the greatest challenge facing scholarly excellence in our academy and other African academies is reformulating our concept of excellence to accommodate local as well as international paradigms. This is not a call for a strident, nationalistic, or parochial approach, but a wider and more meaningful concept of excellence which is not dictated and dominated by Eurocentric criteria. Now, when the Ephraim Memorial Lectures were being established, some of us wondered whether a proposal to elect Ephraim as a fellow of the Academy would have been endorsed by the Academy. Consider the irony. Here was an icon in philosophy and the creative arts, but did he have enough peer-reviewed publications in international journals or the equivalent? I leave that to you. Conclusion. And I conclude by quoting from Blanketia. In calling for a redefinition of scholarly excellence to accommodate local requirements, our cultural heritage, and traditional systems of knowledge, we are merely pointing to a path already trodden by Kwablanketia. In his last book, he recounted the story of an irate student's protest at a sudden intrusion of Dondo into the rarefied atmosphere of Legon in the following words. Now, I'm quoting his words now. In the early days of the establishment of the Institute of African Studies at the University of Ghana, an irate student in the English department who lamented the sudden intrusion of the otherwise serene campus by the sounds of traditional African drums, including those of the Dondo, a double-headed armpit squeeze drum. He could not keep this to himself. Tracing the noise to the Institute of African Studies, he wrote a letter of protest to the Vice-Chancellor, denouncing the intrusion of Dondology on campus as a worthwhile academic discipline. Such blatant lowering of standards, he stressed, must not be encouraged in our national university. And I continue the quotation. This is still Kwabena Nketia. Amused by this, quote, big joke, the then Vice-Chancellor, Professor Alice Kwapon of Blessed Mary, came in to the Institute to share with me as he roared with laughter. Naturally, like him, I was unperturbed by the zeal of the Anglicized student, even though I liked the newfangled terminology, Dondology, quotations close. Ladies and gentlemen, Kwabena Nketia of Blessed Memory refined Dondology and conveyed it to the international community. My humble prayer is that all scholars of the humanities should follow the inspiring example of our legendary scholar and distill some aspect of their discipline that could also be added to the corpus of human knowledge. Thank you.
Your Excellency, past presidents of the Academy, fellows of the Academy, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, my dear students, may I ask you to acknowledge Nana's effort once more. For us to have put this burden on him in his mid-80s and for him to have carried it with such aplomb is something that we should commend. Thank you, Nana. May we also, in our mid-80s, be able to write and deliver lectures. Thank you. Nana has taken us through the work of the Academy through the eyes and works of fellows. Before Nana, we had His Excellency, the Vice President, launching the 60th anniversary and making promises to us that we intend to hold him to strict proof. Nana began with the value of the humanities from antiquity to the present, and looked at the problem of the adoption of Western paradigms in the academy, not this academy, but in the academy as in the places of learning, looked at the notions of development and the place of indigenous knowledge versus Western academic approaches. He highlighted some of the lectures that have been delivered on the platform of the academy, the contribution of fellows to various areas of thought, in particular the contribution of our fellows to culture and development. If I, as president of the academy, can today wear Ghanaian cloth to preside over an event such as this, then we owe a lot to the leaders of thought who, beginning with the immediate post-independence period with the Osagyefos African personality, showed that there was nothing wrong with the way we dressed, and that it was not only but in Western attire that we could portray culture. In my own lifetime, I remember the times when my mother would wear a hat and chiffon dress and stockings for Sunday service in Kumasi Wesley Church. Now, the fancy expression for an illiterate person was the expression fratamni, somebody who wears cloth. So it would be unseemly for somebody like me to wear cloth. It sounds like a fairy tale, doesn't it, to the younger ones? But it was. All these things have happened within a generation or so. And so thought is very important. And those who lead us along certain paths have done a great deal of service to us in making us proud of who we are, proud to dress the way we do, and proud to conduct our lives in the way that we have been taught. Nana also mentioned the fact that after he left the sphere of the global and the national to the local, he found heaps of wisdom among his sometimes unlettered elders. And you wonder why we have consigned so much knowledge to a sphere that often makes it inaccessible. While I served in the UN, I became famous for translating local proverbs to illustrate situations. And ever so often, I would be reminded of something I had said, including an Irish colleague once quoting me when some people visited the mission and they seemed to know better than those of us who worked there. I returned from leave to be told that truly the visitor has big eyes but sees nothing, because I had translated an Akan proverb to show that sometimes people who are new to a place view the situation from their own culture and don't understand anything they see. Nana has talked about the challenges of the academy, in particular the funding, but he has also gone beyond funding to alert us to the fact that you need human beings to do some things, and sometimes we don't have that human resource. I allowed him to say manpower because in his generation they did not use gender-inclusive language, but I will use human resource. Nana has traced how our thoughts and the works of fellows have influenced our national life. And for the younger ones, permit me to draw your attention to the fact that in our national anthem, are lines that tell you that they depict classical natural law thought, which is, and help us to resist oppressors' rule. Because in natural law thought, the citizen acquires a right to rise against the ruler if the ruler gets oppressive. So it is not as if all that knowledge has nothing to do with our lives. At the same time, the knowledge that we have bottled up is not helping us at all. And so I urge the younger people here, by the time the academy turns 100 and you are celebrating the centenary of the academy, I believe some of you in school uniform now will be standing where I am standing. And I hope that you would have learned that your forebears made some contribution that made you bigger and stronger for being African. And so, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, I conclude with the words of Kipling: bless and praise we famous men. Now I will add women. For their work continueth, and their work continueth, broad and deep continueth, great beyond their knowing. So don't be afraid to try new things. Don't be afraid to start new things, because big things have small beginnings. I thank you for your attention.
The Vice President of the Republic of Ghana, His Excellency Alhaji Dr. Bawumia, the President of the Ghana Academy of Arts and Sciences, past presidents, vice presidents, fellows of the Academy, Your Excellencies, distinguished invited guests, students, ladies and gentlemen, we've come to the end of this afternoon's session. But before we close, shall we please acknowledge the brilliance of the chairman, not chairperson, the chairman for this occasion, the president of the academy. Shall we please clap for her? We would like to, we've come to the end of this afternoon's session. So please, let's rise as the party up here, please, receipts. Shall we please rise?